Hello, Tumoyans.
Hello, everybody. We're here today with our very special guest, Mr. Michael Granoff. Hello.
Hi, nice to be with you.
We are very happy to have you in our podcast.
So, the first thing that came through my mind when I was told about this podcast is what brought such a successful business executive in such a small city as Albania?
So you see,
Country, sorry.
yeah, so a long time ago, when communism ended in Europe, the United States was thinking about how is it going to help all of these countries develop, and not just to give them money, but help them develop sort of a private sector economy to replace the communist economy that existed before. And so the idea was that the United States would create private sector development funds to invest in those countries, and that the President of the United States would nominate the board, the people who would serve on the board, from a group of people who had some experience in business, some experience doing these things. And then those boards would operate in all of these different countries and hire people locally to try to work on investing and developing the countries. And so there was a fund for Poland, and there was one for Hungary, and there was one for all of those countries, and one for Albania. And I had known President Clinton for a long time and had worked for him when he first became president. And so one day, someone from the White House called me and said, we're going to create a enterprise fund for Albania, and the president is interested in having you work on it. And I didn't know anything about Albania. And so the next time I saw the president, he said to me, well, Michael, I want you to work on the one for Albania because I think it's the hardest one, actually, right? Albania was the poorest country in Europe at the time. And because of the history of communism in this country, it was sort of isolated, as you know, as maybe your parents or grandparents told you.
We've told.
Very isolated.
Listened to the stories.
You have, I bet. Very isolated for a very, very long time. So there wasn't much living experience set in Albania. And so the president asked me to do that. And one thing that happens is usually when the president of the United States asks you to do something, you usually kind of say yes.
Usually.
But it turns out I didn't know anything about Albania, and I didn't even know where it was. Okay, and I had two daughters at the time who were really young. And in their bathroom, I had a shower curtain that was a map of the world. And when I hung up the phone from the president, I took my daughters into the bathroom and I said, look, we now need to find Albania on the map and figure out where daddy's going, right? And we looked around and looked around and looked around, and we found out where Albania was. And that was the beginning of my journey here.
That's such an amazing story. It's really cute.
A little bit strange, but still.
Exactly. But what happened, what's interesting about it was that you ended up gathering a group of people, in this case, first the board members of the fund, that had all kinds of different experiences, business experience in different ways, not necessarily experience in Albania at all, but experiences they could bring to Albania. And those groups got together for all of these countries and were able to make an incredible contribution to what was going to happen in the country. So it turned out to be sort of a unique opportunity for the countries, right, to get people to come that wouldn't ever come before. And it was also a unique opportunity for the people. So for me, I would never have had the chance to come to Albania. I would never have had the chance to do these kinds of things if I hadn't been given that opportunity all that many years ago by President Clinton.
Yeah, but what's something that you particularly could change about Tirana or Albania? Like you see something when you go out and think with yourself how this thing can be better, or what's something that you think all the time about?
So change, is a two-way street, not a one-way street, not just of what you have to bring to it. Think about it as you want to plant a seed.
Yeah.
Right? If you take a really good seed and you plant it in the sand, nothing's going to grow.
No.
If you plant it in a place that has good soil and water and fertilizer, then maybe it grows into a pretty interesting plant. So it turns out that in Albania especially, you had an incredible amount of pent-up demand, pent-up interest in the way that the world worked, into developing the economy, into making everybody's life better. So it turns out that the soil, if you want to continue this analogy, the soil in Albania was very fertile. Right? And then the question was, what are the seeds? What do you plant? Right? And so what we tried to do was not to invent new seeds, but rather to look around, and Tumo's a good example, look around for things that, what were the world's best programs? What were the world's best projects? Where are things that really worked in other places, right? And to try to go to those places and bring those kinds of projects, those kinds of investments to Albania, and then adapt them to the local environment. And so that was the challenge that we had. But it turns out that not only were there really good programs and projects in many, many places around the world, and so as you know, Tumo originally comes from Armenia, and Intel comes from the United States, and we have a Center for School Leadership that came from Israel.
Virtus from British Academy.
Exactly, all kinds of different places. So it turns out that there was a lot of good models out there that we could bring. And it turns out that we had fertile soil because people here were welcomed it, didn't resist it, were interested in having these programs.
It was like a new thing to us, like something that we haven't heard or tried.
Exactly, and really wanted to.
Yeah.
So sometimes, as you know, people, when they see new things, sometimes people resist it because they're uncomfortable. Right? And sometimes people look at new things, look at things that they've never done before, and they say, boy, I sure would like to try that. Well, it turns out that there were more people here who were interested in new programs and things and wanted to try them out than there were people who said, gee, I'm a little bit afraid of that. I don't want to try that.
So I'm personally very curious what were your first thoughts about hearing the Tumo project, and why did you think it would be so great for a country like Albania?
So first, I learned from my own kids how interesting not just sort of the basic technology was, but also all of these things like what you do with animation and music and graphics and how it relates to game development, like my daughter, I told you. All of these things, I had a sense of how interesting they were for kids based on even the experience I had with my own kids. And my own kids actually didn't have the benefit of Tumo. Right? So Tumo didn't exist at the time that my kids, growing up in the United States, growing up in New York, didn't have that kind of opportunity. And so we did a little bit of a study to find what were the best programs. And I can tell you that it wasn't all that obvious. If I said to you, where do you think the best technology development program in the world is? You probably would say, I don't know, Silicon Valley maybe.
China
maybe.
Japan.
Armenia would probably not be your first guess, right?
No.
Maybe it wouldn't be your second guess, or even your third guess. But it turns out that when you did a study of it, looked at all the programs, it turns out that the best program around happened to be Tumo. And then when we talked to Tumo and we said, gee, we'd be interested in bringing this program to Albania, they also thought that Albania was a little bit like Armenia. That is, they had their own experience that was not so different from Albania. And so they had a natural interest in bringing the program here that maybe they didn't have bringing to some other country in this way, because they saw that, I don't know, maybe in a way we were cousins, right? And so they were interested in coming, and that was really the beginning of that relationship. And then because they had started not in the United States, but in a country like Armenia, also they understood a little bit more about the culture and how Albanians, the society worked. And so I think that it became a really good match for that reason.
So what I understood is basically that Armenia and Tirana have a lot in common. So that's the reason why Tumo works so well in Albania. But do you think that, for example, Tumo would work well in a country like America, which is like very developed, more developed than both Albania and Armenia combined, or like another country, like countries in Europe, like I mean,
It-
we already
it's-
know that in Paris it works, but what about America?
So it turns out that it does, right? And it turns out that the things that make it work in Armenia and make it work in Albania are quite universal. And I think that Tumo now operates in something like maybe 10 different cities around the country. I mean, 10 different countries, let's say, around the world. And it turns out that it works everywhere because the nature of the program is so good, and it relates to kids where they are, where their interests are, and gives them these tools, and in a way that they find engaging and creative and exciting and not
boring.
Not boring. You see, exactly, not boring. Those are kind of universals in that way. So it turns out that while the program started in Armenia and then came to places like Albania, that it works in a lot of places around the world. And in fact, because these things are kind of a two-way street, my guess is that there are parts of the program that now have been more developed in Albania that are going to go into the program in Paris. So it's not that the Paris program, we're going to learn from them. They're going to learn something from us.
We could do like a exchange program with Tumo in Paris, or for example in Berlin, like a group, like in America, I've heard that they do in high school the exchange program, but also do an exchange Tumo program. Like a group of students for Tumo Tirana go to like Tumo in Paris, and a group of students from Tumo in Paris come to Tumo Tirana.
I think it would be a great idea, actually, to have that kind of exchange program. And if you think about it, you could do it physically, but you could also do it online.
Yeah, I think the physically is better.
Because you'd like to visit
Yeah.
those places.
Obviously,
no.
who wouldn't
Yes.
like to visit Paris?
Also, the feelings that you get when you go like physically in a place, it's different.
It's true. So, but I think we could probably do it remotely, but we can also do it physically. So I have to tell you, before I came to Albania, guess where I was last week? Paris.
Oh,
Paris.
nice.
And guess what I was doing?
Tumo?
Nope. I'm going to show you. I saw Taylor Swift.
I would have never guessed.
I know you wouldn't guess. I'm the oldest guy you know who's a Swiftie. So I was at the Taylor Swift concert in Paris on last Friday night, about a week ago. And I came to Albania from Paris.
Wow.
Wow.
That was very shocking for us.
Yeah, shocking, I know.
Yeah.
And shocking for most of the
Didn't
people who were
expect
sitting
that
around me. I bet you
happening
didn't.
in our podcast.
Yeah, I bet you didn't have that question on your
No,
list,
no,
did you?
No.
I bet you didn't.
No.
But so here's a good example, right? So the group of people at Tumo, how they all relate to each other, the sense of community we talked a little bit about. So you can imagine that if you go see Taylor Swift in concert, so there were, at the stadium that I went to, there were 40,000 people, mostly girls,
Yeah.
right?
Obviously.
And the concert lasted for 3 hours, and most of the people there knew the words to every single song. And so even when Taylor Swift stopped singing for a minute, 40,000 people kept singing. And so it told you a little bit of the sort of the connection between people, the power of the community. And I kind of sat there and was listening to the whole thing, and you couldn't help but be struck by that kind of experience.
Well, I'm talking about connection. I was literally on Instagram scrolling, and I was like looking at Taylor Swift's outfit from like Vivienne Westwood, and I was very amazed. Wow.
Yeah, she wore a lot of
connections.
She wore a lot of different outfits during the concert because it lasted for 3 hours, and I think she probably wore, I don't know, more than 10, maybe 15 different outfits. And I wasn't even sure how quickly she could change and do it. It seemed amazing
she's
to me.
known about that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
All social media was talking about the Taylor Swift concert.
I bet. Yeah, it was really something. And you can see that. So here's everywhere in the world, people relate to it. So it's a little like Tumo. It's a little bit like the technology, right? So wherever you
Community.
go, yeah, you guys know all about Taylor Swift, right? I know about Taylor Swift. What I wanted to do was, so it turns out that one of Taylor Swift's managers is someone that I know somehow. And so I thought that, maybe I could suggest that Taylor Swift comes to Albania on her
Please
next
do.
tour.
You can. You're free to. Don't worry.
You think do I have your permission to do that?
Yes, very much.
I do?
I think you have all of Albanians' permission.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. It would be a successful
You
thing.
think so?
Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
You'd like to
Very.
go? Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet.
You would like the tickets too?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. As I remember, you were a part of the Berlin summit that was held in October here in Pyramida. Isn't that right?
Yes. You mean when the all of the
Yeah.
different European countries
Yeah.
came here? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And as I remember, you were going through the VR part, like those big things, the glasses, and I was one of them
Aha.
that was explaining to you how the VR works. So, throughout the whole activity, which was your favorite part?
That's a hard question.
Yeah, because you have to say the VR, because I
Yeah.
was a part of it. So.
Yes, I guess I have to. Well, maybe that makes the answer a little bit easy.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest with you. You see, I had to give a speech in front of the pyramid, and you had all of these leaders of all of these countries there. And so I was trying to make sure I was paying attention to it and got that message across. And so by the time I was walking around and seeing all of the different programs, I was pretty relaxed about it and feeling a lot better. And so I was very happy to do the VR one because it was an alternative reality. And by that time, I think I was ready for alternative reality.
I'm very thankful for that. To have you a little bit relaxed from all the hard work, the hard speech that you gave.
But it was really great what you did.
Thank you.
I love how she was like, so which one was your favorite part immediately after she said?
I know. And what do you think I had to say, right? You know, I know. She cornered me. It's true.
So, as a student here in Tumo, I already said this so many times, I enjoy every single minute and second I spend here. So, what's something you, Mr. Michael, really enjoy, like doing on your spare time?
So there are a lot of things I like doing.
Like
so
Taylor?
And so I'll give you a few. Yeah, Taylor was pretty good. I like that. So I'll give you a short list. One of the things I really like doing is being here. And the reason is, in my job back in the U.S., I'm responsible for a kind of a big company, and I don't get to do things like this. I don't get to meet people like you all the time. And so I get to come here a couple of times a year and be in a completely different kind of environment, meet with all kinds of people, do all kinds of different things, do this. And that's a real treat for me. So in some ways, while I work really hard when I come here, it's kind of my vacation. It's a funny thing to take a vacation here, but in this way, but that's kind of what I do.
You're kind of making a comparison, like we said earlier, like we have school, like you have your job back in America, and then you have this thing that we're doing, like we have Tumo.
Maybe that's it. Maybe Albania is my Tumo. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
I enjoy it, like, it's literally my dream to have what you have, that like your work is also your vacation. I mean, I feel like for a lot of people that'd be like literally a dream.
Yeah.
It's an important thing to think about, right? Because when you think about what you want to do with the rest of your life, it's important that you not just do things that you're good at, but you do things that you love, do things that you have passion about.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
And sometimes we look at things and we say, we're good at it, or maybe that's what we should do, or someone tells us that that's what we should do. But one of the things that I've learned, I've had a lot of different jobs in my life, and one of the things I learned is that it's really important to do what you love, follow what you love, follow your passion in that way. So you're right. And if you do it, you're more likely to do better. Right? You're going to like it. You're going to do better. You're going to accomplish more.
You're going to be more motivated for what you do.
Absolutely,
It's like that saying that if you pick something you truly love to work, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's good. That's a good one. That's a good line.
Yeah, but throughout the years, was your weirdest business idea that you had?
Weirdest business idea.
Yeah.
Boy, that's a hard one. Weirdest business idea. Well, I'll tell you, I looked at a business that at the time seemed like a weird business idea, and it didn't work at the time because the technology wasn't there, and then ultimately it kind of did. And so here was the idea. was it possible to use like a pen
Yeah.
on the screen of a computer?
Pen. Ah, like the iPads with the
Ah, yeah.
Apple
But we
Pencil.
have that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Now we do,
Oh my God.
but we didn't then. And so there was a company that was created to try to create this technology to be able to draw, write on the screen, and have what you wrote be translated so that it ended up being in the program.
Yeah.
Right. So if you wrote notes, the notes ended up being recorded. All of those things. And it turned out that it was just before its time, and the company actually failed. And it didn't fail because it was a bad idea. It just failed because the technology wasn't ready. And I'll give you another example, actually. So you know that we all have phones,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We
And
don't have them here with us because
I know it's not a good thing, but I kept mine. So anyway, our phones can do all these different things, right?
Yeah.
You know, the screens are incredible. You can do all of these things.
you can talk.
You can talk. Yeah, exactly. So it turns out that there were people who had the idea of an iPhone many, many, many years ago.
Yeah.
They had this idea, I'm going to have this phone, it's going to have this screen, there are going to be these applications, I'm going to be able to touch the screen, and it's going to do it, all of those kinds of things. And they basically developed this model years and years before iPhones came. But the technology wasn't ready. The touch screens didn't work, the applications weren't there, and the company failed.
I can imagine how the CEO of the company feel now that
Totally.
all these things are very popular and
Can you
all
imagine?
use it. I can
I'd
imagine.
be enraged.
But
I'd be.
I'd be
Wouldn't you?
furious.
I mean, I would try to like keep calm, but I don't think me personally. I don't think I would
Yeah,
be able to do
also.
that.
you don't think you could keep
Yeah.
calm?
I would be furious.
Yeah,
mean,
but
imagine.
I'll tell you what happened. So the company failed, but the people in it went on to ultimately be some of the people that developed the iPhone and the Android phone. So they didn't forget about it, but it was an interesting lesson that they were kind of ahead of the time. They were ahead of the technology, and the technology had to kind of catch up to their idea. And that was the same thing. It was true of being able to draw with a pen, a stylus on a keyboard. At the time, it just wasn't available, and so the technology it couldn't work in that way. I'll give you one other weird idea. Okay, you want another weird one?
Yeah, but the first and the second one wasn't so weird to me because I can imagine these things now, and like if we didn't have phone, that would be very strange for me. But now that
I bet.
we have these things,
I'll
so
give you another
the
weird
third
one. Okay, so someone came to me once with this idea that for the most part, baby food came in jars. Now, I don't know whether you remember what it was like being a baby, but baby food.
Yeah, I have a little sister, so
you
I
have
know.
a little
yeah.
sister, right? So baby food came in jars, and mothers would feed their babies
Yeah.
out of the
The
stuff
spoon.
out of the jars. Yeah, exactly. And so this lady who was an entrepreneur, she said, baby food tastes terrible. Like,
Yeah,
have you
it
ever
smells
tasted
terrible.
it? I know, it's really horrible, right?
I wish I knew.
Yeah. Well, don't go home and try it. Really, it's terrible.
No,
terrible.
I don't suggest that.
Yeah, I don't suggest it either. So what happened was this lady said, why should we be feeding our babies the stuff that we wouldn't eat that tastes so terrible? And so she decided that she was going to develop frozen baby food. And frozen baby food that was going to be made in a more pure kind of way than the baby food that came in a jar. Okay? Yeah. And so she came one day. So it was before I started my own company. So I was working for another company, and she came one day to the board of this company, and she wanted everybody to try the baby food. So she took out a little plate, and she took some of the baby food that was in the jar, and it was mushed up peas.
Oh.
Just imagine, right? Mushed up peas, a little bit from the jar, and then the mushed up frozen peas. And she wanted everybody in the board, a bunch of people who looked like me, that had to taste both baby foods. And it turns out that the directors were more crabby than the babies about it. Who wanted to taste this stuff? So you had these people, they wouldn't even put it in their mouths to eat, right? They didn't want to try it. I had to do it. And I looked at it, looked at this horrible baby food. And in the end, everybody tasted it and said, well, I think the frozen baby food tastes better in the end.
Did it actually taste better?
And it did taste better, but it turns out that it didn't work so well because it had to be frozen.
Yeah.
Right? And basically, when babies decide they need to eat and you're out somewhere in their carriage, it's time to feed them. And so this idea of having frozen baby food that would taste better didn't succeed in that way. But
it's very hard to feed babies.
Yeah.
My experience.
Yeah, you see?
I can't.
You can't do it?
No.
Well,
Why not?
Because firstly, my sister doesn't eat them. She's like 1 year old and she
Yeah.
just drinks formula.
She doesn't eat
Yeah.
anything?
No, anything. She just cries and cries.
I think it's time to start eating. I have a grandson who's 8 months old, and he eats anything that you give him.
You're
He
so
tried
lucky.
to eat my guitar.
Yeah, no, she eat other parts of the house, but not the food.
Other
Yeah.
parts of the house. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, that's a problem for sure.
Well, I think it's like really interesting because when I was a kid
Yeah,
and I had like a baby cousin who was like staying with me, our grandma, like there were these, I don't know if you remember, there are these like tiny packets of like ice cream that's not done yet. You make the ice cream, you have the ingredients inside, and they're specifically made for babies. And
Really?
they're frozen because it helps like when babies are
Chewing.
teething.
Yeah. yeah.
They want to bite on something
Yeah,
that also
definitely.
relaxes them. That's
Yeah.
why they eat the house.
Yeah.
And so basically it was just like mushy ice cream. And it was cold. So that's really interesting to think about.
Maybe you need to try that with your sister.
No, she's gone to America at the moment, so I can't. So
Well, we have a lot of ice cream in America, so I think she probably will have some chances. Don't you
yeah, the
think?
American formula was a big mistake for us.
She didn't like American formula?
No, she like and she doesn't eat the other food.
Oh.
So
So what's like a very unexpected challenge you faced while working?
Working in Albania or working in general?
No,
particular.
working in general, like your own business, because I'm guessing it was very hard to like start your own business, then maintain it. So
It
what's
is.
a very unexpected, very challenge?
So I'll tell you something that maybe you can apply in your own lives over time. If you want to start something that's going to last a long time, you have to do two things that are really hard. And I bet you that both of you have experienced both of them. So the first one is you have to have kind of a value system. What's right and wrong that never changes. When all the other kids are doing stupid stuff, right? And your parents say, "Yeah, we're not going to do that stupid thing," and maybe you'd like to do it. It's hard to have that value system stay constant all the time when all around you people are doing different kinds of things. But it's really important in the end to have values that are important in life and that people ultimately will trust you because they are sure that you will do the right thing. And at the same time, you've already experienced, even in Tumo, how fast everything changes. So if you don't change quickly, you become a dinosaur really, really fast. So at the same time that you have to have values and a sense of right and wrong that doesn't change, you have to adapt and change all the time. And lots of people don't like change. They resist change. In fact, they choose certainty, sometimes bad certainty, over uncertainty. And so when you think of what does it take to build something, anything, you have to somehow combine those two things, right? Having a good sense of values, a good sense of what's right and what's not. And at the same time, you have to push continuously to adapt and change in a world that you all know, even at your age, how much has the world changed just in the last few years when you started to really think about things. It's changed a lot, right?
yeah, but
Yeah.
I think that the value system that you said, it really depends on the personality. Like I'm very strong and I really love what I'm doing and I'm very certain in what I'm doing. So if, for example, Anna tells me to do something else, I wouldn't because I love and enjoy what I'm doing. So yeah.
So
it
maybe you
depends.
have that part of it already down. But at the same time, you need to think of what Anna's doing and say, I don't know, could be, maybe I should learn something from her.
Yeah, but the problem is that I don't change either if it's good or it's bad. So my opinions are my opinions, and I don't change them.
So that's the second part. So my guess is that you're going to have to, you're in good shape on the first part of the equation, and you may need to work a little bit on the second part of the equation, because over time, if you don't change, what happens is, can you imagine, you don't want to be a dinosaur, do you?
I can't change it with a swap. Like, all the people tell me this, that it's like not a good thing to have to do this and have such a strong opinions. And yeah, but I can't change it. It's like a feeling that it's...
Maybe you have to try it out. What do you think?
Oh yeah, exactly. I was
think,
about
Anna?
to say, I used to judge a lot of things when I was a little bit younger, because I'd like to think I'm still young. So
How old are you?
15.
15.
Yeah.
How old are you?
16.
Ah.
So I used to judge a lot of things. Like when people would wear ripped pants, I wouldn't like it. Or when somebody would wear like makeup, didn't like it. And then I grew up and I realized I still don't like wear like ripped jeans, because I tried them on and I didn't like them on me. And I tried makeup and I realized that these are like very generic examples. And I realized that I really like makeup. It's something I'm passionate about. And I just think that you should like try everything and then make a judgment after. I used to have a lot of opinions that now that I'm older, I think that they were very wrong. They were very behind time. And I wouldn't like to say that I'm ashamed of them, but I am very happy of myself that I realized that there's other perspectives. Everything can be seen in a different perspective. Everything can be seen in a different way. And every opinion, no matter how wrong we view it from our point of view, maybe in the other person's point of view, it's correct.
Well, you can test it out.
I strongly believe that if what I'm doing is I'm right with myself, and I have like a contract with myself. Like if I do like this podcast that we're doing now, at the end of the podcast, I'm going to analyze what were my mistakes, what I was wrong, what I was right.
That's a good thing to do. You're right.
Yeah, that's a good thing. But if someone tells me that I'm wrong, I'm going to be like furious. Like even if I know that I'm wrong, I know it myself and I'm aware of that. But like if someone tells me, I'm going to be furious.
So here's an idea for you. It's not so easy. You're right.
Yeah.
When someone
like,
tells you you're wrong.
People think that I can change like for a day or 2 days, and
so here's a way to think about it. What you need to have is called safe space. A place, maybe inside your head, maybe with your friends, safe space, a place where you can try different things that maybe you're nervous about, maybe that you can think about mistakes that you made or that you make, or what you could do better. Safe space where you don't feel threatened to do that. And all of us need safe space, right? Because we make mistakes, things don't go the way we want exactly. And one of the things that I've tried to do here in Albania, I tried to do it, and also back in the United States, is make sure that actually people feel comfortable and not threatened to think about the mistakes that we make and think about how to make things better. Because if you don't look at those kinds of things, you can never get any better, right? We have to continuously learn. We're students. We have no choice for the rest of our lives. And maybe if you think about it and you feel like you're in a safer space, then maybe you'd try some things you wouldn't try before.
Yeah, I think about my mistake, and next time I'm better, I work harder. But my problem is when someone else...
Well, I mean, I also used to hate it when people criticize me. I don't think there's a single person who likes to be criticized.
What's the most adventurous thing you've ever experienced in your life? Expect from the Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah, okay. Well,
think something else.
The most adventurous thing that I ever did in my life. Okay, so here's an example. So have you ever skied?
Yes.
Yeah? Snow skiing?
Yeah.
You have? Do you like skiing?
Yeah,
Love it.
I love the snow.
You like it?
I love cold weather.
Yeah. Okay, so when I was a little old, so I grew up in a place in Massachusetts that had a lot of snow. So I got to ski a decent amount when I was a kid. And when I was a little bit older than you, I went to Europe for the first time, and I wanted to ski in the Alps.
Yeah.
So I went to this place in Austria called Innsbruck. And Innsbruck was a famous place, famous ski area. And so I went and I took this big cable car up to the top of the mountain and skied down.
Oh my God.
And it was really, really hard, terrible. And I felt like I felt like I had forgotten how to ski. And I kind of had to side slip my way down, and it took me, I don't know, half an hour to get to the bottom.
Hard.
And I was a little bit disheartened by it, you know. And I got back on the cable car to go back up to the top to try again. And there was a guy standing next to me who was from Innsbruck, who was from Austria, and he could tell just from the way that I was talking that I was an American. And he said to me, "So are you an American?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "So have you ever skied here before?" And I said, "No." And he said, "So how do you like it?" And I said, "Well, I have to tell you, I've been skiing since I was about 12 years old, and I found it just so difficult. And it wasn't that it was so icy or anything like that. And I kind of had to just almost like walk my way down." And he looked down from the cable car and he said to me, "So show me where it was that you were skiing. Which of those trails were you on?" And so I pointed down and looked at it, and he looked at me and he said, "I think you should try somewhere else. That was the Olympic downhill."
Oh, that's quite.
So when I got to the
adventurous.
top, I followed him to another side that was a lot easier.
Yeah, but still.
Wow. That's actually pretty amazing. Now, I'm very curious. If you were stranded on a deserted island with only one renewable energy source, which would it be and why?
We could tell so much about your personality.
Really?
So
This is
be careful.
This is very
so now you may be nervous
This
if you
is
can
very
tell.
important.
So this is like a psychological test,
Yes.
you think?
Yeah.
Really, not just a test about
I
the
really thought
renewable
about
energy
this.
that you
Yeah,
did.
but we're
Yes.
not gonna tell you the answers now.
You're not going to tell me the answers?
No.
But each answer means something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So do I get to ask you a couple of questions
No.
about this
No.
island?
We only
questions?
have 5 minutes.
Come on, hurry.
We only have 5 minutes, so
You won't tell me where the island is?
Okay, so there's a deserted island.
But where?
the Sahara Desert.
Sahara Desert. That
Yeah.
helps. That helps.
Yeah.
Okay, the island is out in the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
So it's sunny.
I got it. So
Yeah.
solar power is easy. My answer about renewable is solar power.
So what about Antarctica? So it's a desert, but it's icy.
So I think probably if I was in Antarctica, I haven't been to Antarctica. I think probably it's pretty windy in Antarctica. So I would think probably a windmill. I think wind power would be pretty good in Antarctica. What do you think?
Well, actually, personally, I would have chosen wind because in both deserts, they're very known for their storms. So imagine in the Sahara Desert, there's a big storm,
Yeah.
and you have like energy, and that energy lasts.
So I'll have to tell you something. I think that the wind in the Sahara is more variable than the sun. The sun is out every day, all the time. The wind doesn't blow all the time. And when the wind isn't blowing, you would have a hard time with your renewable. So tell me, last thing before we stop. So what did that answer tell you? Because you told me these answers are going to mean something.
That's actually what she said, but what I understood is that like you're a person who can accept change easily.
Yeah. And who would actually go on the trip?
I would. Well, the Sahara, Antarctica, that's why I asked you where the island was. I thought maybe we could find a little bit better place for this island. If the only choice is Antarctica or the Sahara, maybe the three of us could find a better place, don't you think?
I'm just gonna start
We
doing
can
my
go to
research
the
now.
Maldives.
Maldives,
Yeah.
there's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that we can agree
Yeah.
that the Maldives is our
We
place.
have a contract.
I think we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Are you in?
Yeah, I'm in.
Maldives?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maldives.
In?
Yes.
Maldives?
Yes.
Okay. So,
So
thank you, everybody. Was this fun?
Yes.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
so much fun. But we also have a little
A little tiny
things. Yeah.
question.
You have
So-
another question.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
it's not like a question, but we would really love to know
Yeah.
your opinion about us, the new interviewers.
So I think I told you that this isn't the first time I've ever done a podcast. And so I've done them in the past,
Yeah, but
and I've been
we were the
interviewed.
best, huh?
And you know what? You
Just
you
making
were.
sure.
You are
Just
you
making sure.
absolutely the best. And I was interviewed by a bunch of people I had to do this a bunch of times, and both podcasts and TV kinds of things, and nobody interviewing me has been as interesting as the two of you.
So you guys,
Kristi,
you
did you
were
get
very
that?
boring.
Did you like record it? Okay, send me the recording.
Stars,
Thank you.
stars for sure. Absolutely.
Well, it
So-
was a very big pleasure to have you here.
Also-
We're very happy and grateful that you were here.
Wait. I have something else.
What
can
else?
Can we,
Yes.
the two of us,
Yes.
make a podcast with your wife?
With my wife. Well, I'll have to ask her.
Yeah. Can you please ask her? For
Maybe
us?
she
Pretty
has
please?
come to Albania, but maybe the next time she comes, I'll ask her if she'll do that.
We'll be very ready for that.
You'll be ready for it?
We'll
Yep.
be ready.
Okay, start working on the questions.
Yeah.
And by the way, ask her the hard ones, not the ones,
Yeah, we're gonna
not the
send
ones you
the
asked me.
question. We're gonna send you the questions.
Send me the
before-
questions in advance.
before
I think that's a good idea.
Thank you.
It was a very amazing experience. Thank you very much.
We
You're
really
welcome.
enjoyed it.
Oh my God, thank you.